Hi friends, welcome back. It's Mimi with Kid Stories and More today. And we are going to be asking that same old question, what would you do? This is part 4 in our series. If you haven't caught the first 3, there's a playlist. You can catch it on our channel. Before we get into our first aid situations, I want to address something that came up with with part 3. Now, I had mentioned that if you are in if you get lost in a public space, for example, whether you're at a grocery store or somewhere and you get separated from mom or dad, let's say, and I had mentioned you can have them paged over the PA system. So you would go to a manager or an employee of the store and say, "Hi, my dad is John Smith. I got separated. Can you please, page him?" Somebody had mentioned in the comments that they were at, I believe it was Great Adventure or something like that, and they don't do PA system. They will not announce, because then you'd have probably some parents announced all day, every day, over the loudspeaker. So in that situation, here's what I would do preemptively. Now, here's a true story. My daughter was a cheerleader, and we would go the end of season competition was at ESPN Wide World of Sports. Now, if you have ever been here, there are tens of thousands of people roaming around this outdoor-indoor facility. And you lose your kid, you're not gonna, it's kind of like Six Flags, you're never gonna find them, and if you call out, if you say, "Jennifer," 30 kids are gonna look, and your voice can't even carry that far. So what I learned to do, and she had gotten separated from me once, it was the longest 20 minutes or 25 minutes of my life, I could not find her, is first off, I take a snapshot of her, what she's wearing, what she looks like, and I have it on my phone before we part ways. Second off, what I do is I have a meet-up place in mind. So there's a big Jumbotron screen. When you walk into ESPN Sports, once you get past the entryway, before it branches out, there's this huge Jumbotron screen. So I told her, if we ever get separated or if you ever get lost from the group, this is where I want you to come to. Because what happens is when she competes, she's not allowed to have her phone on her, so it's not like I can contact her that way either. So this way we know, if heavens forbid it happens again, this is our meeting spot. So if you're ever going to a Six Flags, say, okay, this food stand or this ride, this is where we will meet in front of if we get separated and we can't find each other. That's a little tip for you. Now, this is based on the book, What Would You Do? A Kid's Guide to Tricky and Sticky Situations, written by Linda Schwartz and illustrated by Beverly Armstrong. There you go. Hopefully it's not glaring, I don't know, with the light. But this book is fabulous. It is a great conversation starter. And these are conversations that you must have with your family. So let's get into it. We've done a bunch of different kinds of situations before. This one is going to be, these situations are all going to be first aid based. So the first one, an animal bite. You're playing catch with your new puppy. In her excitement, the dog bites your hand while you're trying to get the ball. Your hand starts to bleed. What would you do? Well, that's tough, right? Because puppies are going to nip. And while it was an accident, I'm sure, you still got to deal with the fact that you're bleeding. So, first off, very first thing, you're going to wash that bite thoroughly with soap and water. Definitely got to clean that out. You're going to hold a sterile gauze pad firmly on the bite until the bleeding stops. We want to make sure if that dog really got you and it's bleeding, you need to make sure that it stops before you can do anything else. Apply an antiseptic. That could be Neosporin or triple eight ointment or Bactine, bacitracin, some kind of antiseptic. Cover the bite with a Band-Aid, okay? Because you want to keep that, now that it's clean and you've cleaned it out, you've put the antiseptic on, you've let it dry, now you want to cover it so no dirt or anything else, bacteria can get in. Tell your mom and dad or grandma or whomever is watching you, whether it's a babysitter, about the bite. And if you are with the babysitter or you're at a friend's house or wherever you are, make sure you tell your parents or your guardian as soon as you can. Then ask a doctor what additional steps you should take to guard against possible rabies or tetanus infection. Remember, if it's a puppy, a brand new puppy, it might not have all its shots yet. So, I mean, because it's, every couple months they get a different shot. So I'm trying to remember from my puppies, I think it's at 6 months they get their rabies. So you definitely want to make sure that you have the proper shots in place in case. If you're ever bitten by a stray animal, so this one's not your animal, but a dog or cat or whatever that's just, randomly running around that you don't even know if it has an owner or not, well, that's a different kind of thing. You need to make sure that you call animal control officers immediately so that they can catch the animal. They'll watch the animal to see if it has rabies and report what they learn to your doctor, or you will report what you learn to the doctor after they tell you, okay? You want to make sure if it is a stray dog, chances are it may not have any shots. So you definitely need to get seen by a doctor immediately. You want to be safe. Did you know to do all that? Well, if you did, you're a super smarty pants. If you didn't, I hope you took some tips away from that. So our next first aid situation is a tick bite. Now, some of you may live in the city and not have much contact with ticks, but if you're like us in more, foresty type areas or country type areas, you might have come in contact with a tick. Now, so you're camping with your family in a national park. When you return from a morning hike, you discover a tick on your leg. What do? What would you do? They don't just shake off like a fly. Okay, so the first thing is do not, according to the book, do not try to brush or burn off the tick or pull it loose. There's a few reasons why you shouldn't do that. One, you could hurt yourself, and two, you can separate parts of the insect, so we don't want to do that. What you should do, if you can, cover the tick with a thick coat of petroleum jelly, like Vaseline, to close its spiracles or air holes. And once it's unable to breathe, the tick will suffocate and will probably drop off your leg on its own in less than 30 minutes. Now, if you don't have petroleum jelly nearby, or two, it still didn't dislodge itself from you, what you can do is you can remove it carefully with tweezers, but you got to be careful because you do not want to crush the tick and you do not want to separate the body from the head. Once the tick has been removed, wash the area of your leg around the tick bite with soap and water for a full 5 minutes. Count them. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wash that area very, very well. Apply a topical anesthetic to the bite area to relieve the itching so that you will not be tempted to scratch it. That could be Benadryl cream or calamine lotion or some kind of, something like that. Now, ticks can carry several illnesses. You hear about Lyme's disease. Watch the bite area closely if it becomes swollen or inflamed. If you do develop a fever, then you need to see a doctor immediately and ask to be tested for Lyme's disease. Important stuff. Okay, now our third and final, what would you do? A cut finger. You're home alone and get hungry. You go into the kitchen to fix yourself a sandwich. While you're slicing the tomato, the knife slips, oops, and you cut your finger. You can't stop the bleeding. What do? Oh, that is tricky. What would you do? Okay, well, you all know the first thing you should do, right? You need to wash that cut finger thoroughly with soap and water. So you go right to the sink, put it on cold, get some soap, and wash it out. Hold your cut finger under the cold water. That would hopefully help it stop bleeding. Wrap a paper towel or napkin snugly around your finger. You want it tight around there to help stop the bleeding. Also, hold it above your head. That can help as well. Okay, because if you're holding your finger down at your side, all the blood is rushing down there. But if you're holding it up, the blood's going this way and away from the tip, and that could stop it as well. After the bleeding has stopped, apply an antiseptic like your AAA ointment, your bacitracin, things like that, and a sterile Band-Aid. Now, if it does not stop bleeding, or if the cut is really deep, you might need to get stitches. So definitely tell mom and dad right away after you get it Band-Aided up. And if you need to seek additional help, like going to the doctor or the emergency room to get it stitched up or to get a doctor to look at it, make sure you do. Well, I hope these tips were helpful for you, and I hope you come back. Every couple weeks we have another What Would You Do, because it's so important to get these conversations started. And please talk about these situations with your family and ask them what they would like you to do. Okay? We love having you here. We love seeing your faces every day. So come back, support us, like, share, subscribe, comment down below what kinds of situations you'd like us to cover in What Would You Do, whether it's in this book or not. We'll be happy to help. See you soon. Bye-bye.